Hi everyone, welcome back to another video. Today I'll be covering the theory of demand in a beginner friendly manner. I lay down the foundation so that we can move on to the elasticity of demand in the next video. So, let's get started. What is demand? It is the optimal amount of a good that a consumer chooses to a change in its price, assuming that all the other factors such as income, prices of other goods, tastes, etc. remain unchanged. For example, if at $10 per taco, a consumer chooses to purchase 5 units, and at $9 per taco, the consumer chooses to purchase 6 units, then 5 and 6 units are the quantity that the consumer demands against the set prices. Now, what can we infer from this information? If QD is equal to quantity demanded of a good and P is equal to the price of the good, then the demand function is QD is equal to F of P. That is, quantity demanded is a function of price. This relationship is generally negative in nature. This means that when price of a good increases, the quantity demanded of that good falls. And when price of a good falls, then the quantity demanded of a good increases. You must be wondering why I keep saying quantity demanded and not just demand. That is because usually when we say demand for a good has changed, we attribute it to changes in factors other than price. On the other hand, when quantity demand for a good has changed, it's due to the change in price of that good. It's just something I thought you should keep in mind. So I've said that there is a negative relationship between price and quantity demanded. Let's see why that happens. There are two effects that are taking place. The first one is the income effect, and the second one is the substitution effect. Let's take a closer look at both of them. If we assume the price of good has fallen down, the real purchasing power of the consumer increases even if the income remains constant. That is, with the same level of income, the consumer can buy more of both the goods. This is called the income effect, which partly explains the negative relationship between the price and the quantity demanded. Now let's look at the substitution effect. If we assume that the price of a good has fallen and we adjust our income such that it would allow us to just purchase the initial bundle of goods at the new prices, then the consumer can purchase more of the good whose price has fallen. In other words, consumer substitutes consumption of a good to increase the consumption of the good whose price has fallen down. We can see the negative relationship between price and quantity demanded mathematically too. Let Px be the price of good X. Let Qx be the quantity of good X. Let Py be the price of good Y. Let Y be the quantity of good Y. Let M be the income. We know that our budget equation states Px into X plus Py into Y is equal to M. From this we can find the value of X through manipulation, and X will be X is equal to M minus Py into Y whole divided by Px. Let this be our equation 1. If we assume that the price of good X has fallen to Px minus Px1, then our new budget equation would look something like this. Px minus Px1 whole multiplied by X plus Py into Y should be equal to M. Through manipulation, we can find x as m minus py into y upon px minus px1. This would be our equation 2. Now, since the denominator in equation 1, that is px, is greater than the denominator in equation 2, that is px minus px1, we can conclude that x in equation 1 is greater than x in equation 2. Thus, we can further conclude that as price of good X has fallen down, the consumer is demanding more of good X. Hence, we have proved the existence of the negative relationship between price and quantity demanded. This inverse relationship that exists between the price of a good and its quantity demanded is known as the law of demand. Therefore, according to the law of demand, ceteris paribus, if the price of a good increases, its quantity demanded falls and vice versa. This is also the reason why we will have a downward sloping demand curve. It is important to know that the law of demand holds true only for normal goods. We can roughly divide goods into two types, normal goods and inferior goods. Under which category a good will fall into can be determined by seeing how a person changes his demand for that good in response to a change in his income. If a person demands more of a good when his income increases, then the good is considered to be a normal good. Let's look at this example. We have Betty, who usually purchases a dress when she receives her salary. This time she has received a bonus. So she has decided to get a pair of pants too. Clearly, clothes in this example are a type of a normal good. The other type of goods are inferior goods. The demand for inferior goods falls as a person's income increases. Inferior goods are situational in nature. What may be considered inferior for one person may not be inferior for another person. For example, let's look at the coarser cereals. Coarser cereals may be an inferior good for Mr. T, who comes from a lower income group, but they are a normal good for Mr. A, who is financially well off. We have a special type of inferior goods that are called Giffen goods. Giffen goods are those goods whose quantity demanded falls when their price falls and the quantity demanded increases when their prices rise. We can also see how demand for a good by a consumer is impacted by the prices of related goods. In this category, we have substitute goods and complementary goods. Let's understand them both with the help of the examples. Rita starts her morning with a cup of coffee. Unfortunately, due to crop failures experienced by coffee producing nations, the prices of coffee have jumped up. Due to this spike in coffee price, Rita shifts to tea in the morning. In this example, we can see that tea is a substitute for coffee. When the relative price for tea is lower, the demand for tea increases and the demand for coffee falls. Thus, we can say substitutes are those goods that can be used in place of one another. When prices of the substitute falls, the demand for the related good falls and vice versa. Now let's turn to complementary goods. Complementary goods are those goods that are used alongside each other. When the price of a complementary good rises, the demand for related good falls. For example, Rita puts 2 spoons of sugar with 1 spoon of coffee. When the price of sugar rises, she uses 1 spoon of sugar and half a spoon of coffee. Thus, sugar and coffee are complementary goods. When the price of sugar has risen, Rita has not only reduced her consumption of sugar, but she has also reduced her consumption of coffee. So now we've looked at what demand is. We've seen why there's a negative relationship between price and quantity demanded. We've looked at what normal and inferior goods are and what complementary and substitute goods are. In the next video, we will look at factors that will result in a shift in demand curve. We will also look at what elasticity of demand is, along with a lot of other things. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments and I'll try to answer. That's all for today's video. I hope you liked it. Thank you for watching and I will see you in the next one.